well, what's God's will? And I think you've said it. It's like God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. And when I get in the way of that, then there's a problem. But if I just surrender and give up and it's like, I've always used this analogy of swimming up a stream. You're swimming up the stream. My whole life I've been swimming. Just, and I get into the rapids and I am just really swimming against that flow. And I'm trying so hard. And it's just miserable. I'm tired. I'm not getting anywhere. And then when I give up and I go with the flow and I just float down the river, it becomes so peaceful and calm. And that's where my higher power wants me. He doesn't want me struggling through those rapids. I don't believe he does. But Brent is so stubborn and bullheaded. I'll stay in those rapids for years, trying to do it. Yes. Yeah, when I let go and I get to that nice, calm pool of water, it's just so peaceful.
Welcome, everyone. We're back. We've had a little bit of a break, at least in our timeline. Yours is probably just the next episode, but we're excited to be here with you again. This is, a really great opportunity for us to just talk a little bit more about why we're doing this and maybe some bumps in the road that Brent experienced. And we'll just take it from there and see where we go.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's nice to be back. Took a little vacation, so we're all ready to go again. But I think like Jonathan just said, I think it's just important that, we let the people out there know that the reason we're doing this is really just to help people, to give them hope. When I got to the program and walked in the doors, I was so beat down and I just didn't have any hope. Just talking to a couple of people along the way, gave me the encouragement and the hope that if they could do it, maybe I could do it. And I've talked many times about building that community around us, and I just think that's so vitally important. Every life is so precious. One thing that I think that I really was pretty good at, I didn't realize it at the time, but it's recognizing opportunities, opportunities to possibly be happy just one more day, just possibility that I could go for a few hours without taking a drink, the possibility that if I kept doing the next right thing, my life was going to get better. And that's exactly what happened when I got out of treatment. I just hung on to every little thing. Horace was he was rough on me. He was tough on me. And he guided me through this process the way I needed to be guided. And I don't want to say he beat me down. I think I beat myself down. I think I was probably harder on me, and I had been for so many years. I just didn't have any self-worth or self-esteem or integrity, all those things that I find vitally important now. I certainly had to get those things along the way. And the way I did that, they often say in this program, this is a program of action. It isn't, you don't sit on the couch and eat potato chips and watch soap operas and build self-esteem. I build self-esteem by getting out there and accomplishing stuff, getting up every day and taking a good look at who Brent was and who I wanted to be, and how I was going to get there. And I broke it down into, it wasn't, I didn't get out there in weeks and months and years. I really, really concentrated on just staying in the moment, trying to live one day at a time. I think that was one of the best tools I had when I got out of treatment, was knowing that I didn't have to stay sober for the rest of my life. I didn't have to stay clean for the rest of my life. I just made a choice today. I'm not going to drink. And
Mhm.
I would ask for some guidance along the way. And, I'd say a little prayer. They told me to pray in the morning and ask for help and then pray at night and thank him for getting you through the day. And that took a lot of guts just to pray. I was never into that. I never really liked to do that. So it took a lot of courage and guts. And, you know, when you look back on things, I could see where things were changing really, really fast in my life. Things were getting better at a pretty good rate. I mean, it had been bad for so long. There was no direction but up.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, there was nowhere to go. I was as low as you can get. And so, any little accomplishment uh, gave me a little more hope, gave me a little more bit of encouragement. And that's really my message to anybody out there. If you can just get a hold of a community, just a couple of people out there where you can talk to and hold on to and get some direction from people that have already walked through this deal. It just helps so much. And trust me, I know what it's like. A lot of people out there right now are thinking, "Oh, I hate to ask for help." Join the club. That's called alcoholism.
Mhm.
We all have the same thing. None of us like to. So I've talked to so many people and they'll tell me, "Well, I don't like to ask for help." Well, no kidding. None of us do. You know, that's what we're up against. We're up against our own brain, our own thoughts. And and if you're going to change and you're going to get sober and you're going to stay that way, you're going to have to face some of these things. And some of it is it's not easy. It's hard. It's yeah, I don't want to say hard because I can hear Horace in the back of my mind saying,
At the
"It
same
ain't
time.
hard. But it's it's a challenge because you
Oh
got to
yeah.
do things different. The old way it just doesn't work. I did it the old way over and over and over and over again, and I never ever could get past it. And so when I started taking these little tiny steps to ask somebody for help, to go, it was okay for me to be uncomfortable. I used to need to drink or drug so I could feel comfortable. You know,
Right.
I it was my liquid courage. And when
Right.
you took that away from me, I was uncomfortable a lot. But what's the
Mhm.
alternative? I don't want to
Mhm.
I don't want to drink anymore. It's
Yeah.
okay to be uncomfortable. So I was uncomfortable. And I did a lot of things that made me feel uncomfortable. I put myself in situations and in places where I just felt uncomfortable. But
Yeah. That's interesting.
the end result of that is I started feeling good about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had some courage, something I hadn't had for a long, long time. My courage came out of a bottle,
Right.
and suddenly I'm finding these things out. And then you start to make some progress and you start feeling better about yourself. You can actually brush your teeth and look at the mirror at the same time. I've walked through the steps, I've made amends to everybody, uh, the best I could. I set things right. I've cleaned the slate, and then now I've got this ability to go help other people because of all the horrible, terrible things I did my whole life.
Yeah.
Somehow I took those, or the steps took those, and turned them into my assets.
Yeah.
You know, that
100%.
that's one of the beauties of this program is
For sure.
all those rotten things that I did. The next person that walks up to me and said, "Hey, Brent, I'm struggling. I can't quit drinking, blah, blah, blah." I know their story. I know what they feel like. I've been there. I know all the craziness you went through. The one thing I found out along the way is we all think we're so damn unique. And the truth of the matter is we're not.
Yeah.
We
No.
all think the same stupid thoughts and we all try the same stupid stuff to keep from drinking and we all lie to ourselves. Our brains tell us the same stuff. Oh, it'll be different this time. How many times did I believe that thought going through my head? Oh, it's not that. Oh, it'll be different. It's not gonna, I can have one or two. I
Wow.
remember one time I went, I decided I wasn't going to drink, right? I just come off a spree. I don't know what happened, but I got in trouble. And so my buddy, I was with Elaine at the time. Um, I think it was, maybe we were married. We are probably married at the time. Anyway, we're going to a party, and it was up by Hill Air Force Base. And we were going to watch it was like at the end of the runway, and they were having an air show there. So we're going to go up to my buddy's house, and he bought a keg of beer. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And somewhere along the way, I heard somebody say that your body processes one ounce of alcohol. Your liver will process 1 ounce of alcohol every hour. So there's 1 ounce of alcohol in a beer.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'm pretty smart. If I drink one beer every hour, I won't get drunk.
You're good. Yeah.
I'm good. I can do that. So I go to this keg party and I'm watching everybody just slamming this beer. And I paid, I chipped in. I paid the same amount as they did. And they're getting a lot more beer out of it than I have. And I'll tell you what, I did it. I stayed there all night and I drank one beer every hour. It was so miserable. I wish they would have just shot me. I mean, it was terrible.
It was not the way to go. Huh?
And I left there and I'm thinking that was the dumbest thing to ever do, And I was so upset. I went to the store and bought a bunch of beer, and I think I got a bottle. And I'll tell you what, I let it loose. I got messed up that night. Many times in the program, we'll hear people say, you either control it or you enjoy it. And if you're controlling it, you sure the heck am not enjoying it. And that night I was not enjoying it. I was miserable. And when I just cut loose and I don't try to control it, and I just go back to my drinking, then I enjoy it until I don't, until something happens. And it's, either you pass out or get I heard a guy one time in a meeting say every time he drank, he broke out in handcuffs, It's like that was me,
Yeah.
I would end up going to jail over something stupid.
But it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you remember, so Jerry Seinfeld, there was this one episode where George is Jerry's friend, right? And he decides one day to do exactly the opposite of his instincts. Right? It's like what you're telling me, like your brain is wanting you to not do what's good for you, right? And so the whole episode, he does the opposite. Jerry tells him, like, whatever your instincts are, you do the opposite, And his life turns around. He gets a girl, he gets an awesome job, like all these good things happen to him, And it just made me think of that. I think of that sometimes too, where I'm just like, I've been screwing up so much that I'm just going to do the opposite of whatever my instinct is. And I don't know, tell me more about this brain thing. How do you do that day to day? Like, do you catch that brain giving you bad information, or how do you
well, first off, it takes some time to realize that that voice in your head is lying to you. And I kind of had to look at it as that was the disease, and the disease was trying to kill me.
Right.
So when you look at it in that light, you start to understand that those thoughts and those things are deadly. They're no joke. I mean, you don't just laugh about them and laugh them off. You got to realize that when your brain tells you, that you're thirsty or you get so upset, we've talked about resentment's number one offender. You get full of resentment, and I'll guarantee you one thing: your brain will trick you into going out into the big bad world and pick up resentments like you're picking flowers.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is cunning, baffling, and powerful, is what the book says.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that disease does everything it can to make you want to drink. And so you've got to figure out ways to combat that. And in the program, we're always talking about we get tools. The steps are a tool, the sponsors a tool, going to meetings and being involved is a tool. Praying, like I talked about the serenity prayer, when I was going to school, I had to say that serenity prayer. Well, that was a tool. And so, and, it's just like a carpenter, you can gather up a lot of these tools, but if you don't put them into practice, they're just tools, right? So you've got to learn. And trust me when I tell you this, is there's a lot of stumbling along the way. It doesn't come easily. You have to actually, I know that alcoholics are really good at procrastinating and they're really good at thinking, but they're not really good at action. And again, this is a program of action. So when you pick up one of these tools, you actually have to use it. And so as you go along and you figure out, you run into stupid little obstacles or big ones, somebody dies or there's something, there's problem at work or whatever, you start to, you make some phone calls and you talk to other people and say, well, how did you get through this? I know you've been through a lot of this. What did you do? And just talking about it and throwing it out there seems to help a lot. But I think I've always had this notion that you can't change anything, in your brain until you recognize it. You have to recognize there's a behavior and the behavior is harmful. Okay. When you have these terrible thoughts and you realize that you can stop them, you cannot believe them, you don't have to act. A thought is nothing until you act on it, right? And I just think it's so important that you learn how not to fall into that trap when your brain starts telling you, that you're not a good person, or you're not this, you're not that, you don't belong and you don't fit, and on and on and on. Those are just things that most of us alcoholics and addicts think, we feel like we don't belong anywhere. We don't fit in. And sometimes that brain just starts pounding on you and starts telling you these things. So prayer, working the steps. What works the best, and this is in the big book, is nothing works better than working with another suffering alcoholic. If you can just get out of your own self, if you can just get out of your own pity and just go talk to somebody else and listen to their problems, it's a miracle that you just get out of yourself for a few minutes and you realize that, wow, I calmed my brain down just by talking to somebody else, and I wasn't totally concentrating on me and my problems. Where would you be if you didn't have problems? What does that even mean? Think about that. If you had no problems, you had nothing to complain about, if you had nothing going on and you didn't have any problems, how would you even act? I got asked that question one time and it's like, I almost lost my brain trying to think about that.
Right.
It's just about, my head almost blew up. It's like, can't even imagine not having problems. I don't even know if it's possible. So along the way, you realize that you just learn how to deal with those things. And there's lots of help out there. I've listened to lots and lots and lots of self-help books and found different ways. It just seems like one of the hardest things is just being willing, willing to do something different. Am I willing to get out of this constant, wheel of doom and gloom? What do I need to do? And then when you figure out what you need to do, actually getting off your butt and doing it, And so slowly but surely you kind of figure out that, you can start walking through some of this stuff. And in the beginning, man, you're crazier than a bed bug. I mean, you're bouncing off the walls. I mean, every day is just like, holy crap, what am I going to do with myself? Now you got all this energy and, real sensitive. You can feel all your feelings. And it's like you haven't felt a feeling for so many years that suddenly you can feel everything. I think I shared the story about watching TV that day and some guy won $10,000 on TV and I started crying like a baby. I was so happy for the guy. I didn't know him, but I was so sensitive to, good things happening to other people. Like, really? I didn't, or even Karen, I didn't like me when I came to the program. I didn't like me when I started getting sober, let alone liking anybody else. And, slowly but surely, you really start taking an interest in your fellows, you start taking an interest in other people and how they're feeling and what their days are. I remember one time I was feeling really, really down. And this good friend of mine told this story about him buying this car. He found this car and it was like this Acura, way above my pay grade, right? I mean, this was a nice car. He was a professional athlete. So he was retired, but he had money. And he's talking about getting this super deal. And he flew to California to pick it up. And he got this from some little old lady. He's driven it to the, hairdresser every week for years and had no miles on it. And I just remember leaving and after talking to him, and I remember saying a little prayer. And it was, they always say you shouldn't pray for yourself, but I was like, okay, God, when is this going to happen for me? I mean, all these good things happen to all these people. I've been sober for X amount of time. I've been doing, I go through this checklist and it's okay, God, when am I going to get a payoff? Not realizing that just living life sober is a huge payoff. I mean, here I am complaining about this miracle that was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who am I to complain about that? But of course, I wasn't focused on that. I was just focused on the stuff I didn't get.
Mm-hmm.
I want a good deal on a car.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, that right shortly thereafter, and I'll have to tell that story. I can talk about that on a whole episode, but
Yeah.
I got a job offer that was like this job fell in my lap, and it was the most fabulous thing that's ever happened to me. And I'll talk about that at some point in time. But my
So you
point
did
is,
get an answer to your prayer then, right?
yes, yes. Even when I was complaining, I mean,
Yeah.
I often say that my higher power isn't a codependent.
Yeah.
He I don't know. I don't know I don't know how it happened. Tell you the truth, I've thought about that a lot because I just remember going to that meeting, listening. I don't want to hear about everybody's,
Good
great
things.
things that are happening in their life.
Yeah.
When I was drinking and drugging, if somebody got a new car and everything, or they got a new job or whatever, they took one step up that ladder above me. I wanted to grab them and pull them down to my level, you know? And that's where the name of this podcast comes from, is we don't pull people down. We push them to the top. We help them up that ladder.
Yeah.
And the more they succeed, the better I feel now.
Yeah.
I love to see people succeed. I love to see families come together. I love to see men turn into fathers. And I get the opportunity to see that all the time. I get to watch these men walk through the doors, go to meetings, and they're just there's no expression on their face. Their eyes are dead. They look like I felt when I got here, an empty shell of a man. And you get to see that light come on. And then one day you get to see them with their significant other and they're smiling and laughing. And then you see their kids. And there's not a greater gift in the world to give to those kids than a sober dad. Not a greater gift. That is the most amazing thing in the world. And I love seeing that, and if I can help that guy along the way or that gal to be able to achieve that, man, that's what this thing's all about. That's why I'm here doing this podcast. If I can just help somebody out there to achieve their goals and to become when I got sober, I didn't give a crap about nobody but me, and I didn't get sober to be a dad. I didn't become sober to be a good employee or a husband and all that. Those weren't thoughts I had in my head. And now they're the greatest gifts of it all. And if I would have taken one drink along the way, just one, that would have been all stripped from me.
Yeah.
Just one drink. It's such an incredible thing. But yet, when I'm going through this thing after I get out of treatment and I'm going through life and life's coming at me really, really, really fast. And, I don't have the tools to really face all of it, face the ability to make a living, face the ability to pay bills, face the ability to do all these things or the inability to do all these things. It was really, really scary. And so I leaned on a lot of people, we hung out together, we did things together. And
talk to me about discipline. Like it seems like there's some of that happening along the way as well. Like certainly the tools, but is there routines? Is there what's that? How does discipline fit into this? I guess maybe that's the question.
Well, I think it's just like anything else. I mean, you could pull a word like discipline out and say, alcoholics don't like discipline. I don't like, you show me an authority figure that I like. There's nobody out there. You're wearing a uniform, or you're my boss, or you're this, or you're that, and you're above me, and you're giving me orders. I don't like that. So once again, you just have to get uncomfortable, right? So discipline's the same thing. I didn't like discipline. I like to fly by the seat of my pants, and I still do to this day, but I just do it in a different way. I always ask myself the question, do you want to stay sober today? Horace, and hear those voices. Do you want to stay sober today? What are you willing to do to stay sober today? Am I willing to wake up in the morning and ask my higher power to keep me sober today? Am I willing to do that? It sounds simple, You're either going to drink or you're going to say this prayer. Who's going to, it's just like if somebody had cancer, would you say the prayer if you had cancer? Of course you would. It's going to save your life. But for whatever reason, alcoholics, oh my gosh, I got to pray in the morning, And so when you get into these routines, that's what starts the discipline, right? You get into a routine. You wake up in the morning, and I do this to this day. I make a choice every day that I want to stay sober. I want to stay sober. And I don't take those words lightly. So when I say that I want to stay sober, that means that I have to be able, or I got to be willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober today. So I've often said that I'm a spoiled little brat. I get what I want. And if I can just say I want to stay sober, then I'm willing to go through the steps it takes to do that. And a lot of people will call that discipline. You got to be disciplined to do it. At the end of the night, I think I don't always do it anymore. Sometimes I catch myself kind of on cruise control, which is a scary place to be. I'm 36 years sober, but the truth of the matter is all I've got's today, It can sneak up on you in a heartbeat. It can take you down at any time. Like I just said, one drink, that's all it takes, So the discipline part is just like anything else in the program. It just takes action and work. And I'm a routine person. I like going I always drove the same way to work. I always parked at the same place. I go to the same restaurants. I like sitting with my back to the wall when I go to a restaurant. There's certain things that I do the same over and over and over and over again. Like it's just a sense of comfort for me.
Yeah.
When I go to the airport, I park in the same place. When I I just do things. I just got a routine. So when I get a routine going in sobriety that works for me, then
Doing it.
I stick with that. But I think it's vitally important that you give up fighting everybody and everything. You just give up.
Mm.
If you gotta learn to be disciplined, then that's what you got to do. We
Yeah.
all have different struggles, but
Mhm.
I think the end result is the same. It's action and finding a tool that works for you. And it's nobody's responsibility. It's my responsibility.
Mhm.
My sponsor doesn't call me up every morning and say, "Hey, Brent, did you ask your higher power to keep you sober today?" No, he doesn't say that. He thinks I do it because I tell him I do it because I do it. You know, I do it because I want to stay sober. I have a sponsor because I want to stay sober. I do this stuff because I want to stay sober, you know? And if this is what it takes, you know, then
Yeah.
so be it.
I love that. I mean, even just saying that sounds like a prayer. I want to stay sober.
Yeah,
And I believe God wants to give us what we want.
I believe you're right.
And and sometimes we don't want the right things for ourselves. And so he's like, okay, but guess what's going to happen? You know, but when our will starts to align with his and we want the same thing, well, watch out. Watch
Yeah.
out. Watch out. Here comes Brent.
But does it ever align?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Do you think? I don't know. I
I
don't
think
know.
so.
I
I
think
mean,
sometimes things happen that you kind of question, you kind of know that, your higher power, you feel the spirit, for
yeah,
lack of better words. You just feel the spirit, whether
100%.
it's talking to somebody or it's certain situations, a lot of the times that I've spent with you, I, I go over to your house and I'm sitting there and I look up and realize what a miracle it is that we're together. What a miracle it is that I learn, I get to know your family. And Jonathan, none of that would have happened if I would have taken one drink.
Exactly.
It's just so amazing to me.
Yeah.
So the gifts that come along the way,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I-
I know the blues.
it's almost like I'm on a ride. It's not like, I don't think I've always had kind of this feeling that I've had this debate with quite a few people in the program that'll say, what's God's will? You want to do God's will. Well, what's God's will? And I think you've said it. It's like God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. And when I get in the way of that,
Yep.
then there's a problem. But if I just surrender and give up and kind of, it's like I've always used this analogy of swimming up a stream. You're swimming up the stream. My whole life, I've been swimming, just, and I get into the rapids and I am just really swimming against that flow. And I'm trying so, so hard. And it's just miserable. I'm tired. I'm not getting anywhere. And then when I give up and I go with the flow and I just float down the river, it becomes so peaceful and calm. And that's where my higher power wants me. He doesn't want me struggling through those rapids. I don't believe he does. But Brent is so stubborn and bullheaded. I'll stay in those rapids for years, years, trying to do
Splashing
it.
against the
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. When I let go and I get to
Wow.
that nice, calm pool of water, it's
Wow.
just so peaceful.
Well, you're not going to believe this. So, well, maybe you will. You probably will. So on Thursdays, which is tomorrow for um I take my son and my wife and we go to the temple and we do baptisms for the dead. And I participate. I just love that the idea of all of it. I just love it. So And as I'm doing this, as I'm getting out, because there's water involved, and this thought came to me as I was getting out. It's like, Jonathan, stay in the living water, the flow of the living water. Don't fight against it. Just exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I think there's just truth, right? And when I hear you say it, and I've experienced that just last Thursday, man, that tells me, the Spirit tells me, yeah, that's true. Just stay in the
Yeah.
flow of what God wants. And He wants our happiness, He wants our freedom, He wants us acting for our best interest and the interest of others, And so, anyway, I thought that was super awesome. You just said that.
I just think that's amazing. It just blows me away because our paths are so different. Our spiritual paths are so different. Mine's just 180 degrees away from yours. I mean, you've gone to church your whole life. You've done all this stuff. You're really involved in your religion and everything. And I did just the opposite. I went out there drinking and drugging and carrying on and going to jail and doing all these terrible, rotten things in my life and never went to church, never. But somehow my higher power has got me back on the path of being spiritual, not religious, but spiritual.
Yeah,
And when I hear you say that, I feel like we're on the same level,
exactly.
even though our paths were so different. And that's the beauty. I resented religion when I got here, when I first got sober. I resented, they're telling me what God to believe in. You can take that and throw it out the window. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I just had so many resentments and it's so nice. There we go again. You just give up fighting everybody and everything. And when I give up fighting the LDS church that you belong to, I don't have any judgment. I don't have any pushback. I don't have those thoughts are all gone, and it's so beautiful.
It is. That's
I
so
love peaceful,
We're looking at that same nugget of truth
Yeah.
from our own perspective. And it just is like, yeah, if I can get into the flow and stop fighting, I can surrender. And again, I don't have the disease that you have, but I have my own struggles, right? We all have them.
Right.
And I think God was trying to tell me, like, hey, just don't quit fighting the stream, quit fighting the flow of the river, go this way. And you put it just perfectly. And it's just so amazing that truth sort of just hit me last week. And yeah, so to me, it doesn't matter what, I don't think God cares about what religion you belong to. He cares about where your heart belongs. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here is, yeah, that's where we want to be is to help each other and to push each other to the top.
Push each other to the top. That's what it's all about. And it's hard to do that when you're full of resentment and hate and opinionated. You got all these opinions. One thing that we never talk about or very, very seldomly talk about in a meeting is religion. We don't talk about religion. We have no opinion on outside issues. That's an outside issue. We don't really care what you believe in, however you do it, you do it.
Yeah.
So we try to avoid that. We try to avoid political talks. You don't want to get into that. Anywhere that you can stir up any controversy, we just try to avoid it. And I just think it's just like praying for somebody that you resent, right? You just when you really have an opinion on something and it doesn't match with other people, I don't have the want to go change their minds. I used to always, if you didn't think what I thought, well, you're a dummy, Here, let me educate you because you're thinking wrong. You're doing this wrong. And it didn't matter what it was. I mean, I just had an opinion on everything. And, when you quit doing that, it's just life becomes, it's just like layers of onions that comes off of you. You just peel off and none of this happens overnight. This is experience from years of staying sober, years of constantly working on me becoming a better person. It takes years and years to, you know, of practice, these tools to not give up and to just understand the power of it all.
Mhm.
I don't know that I don't know if everybody really understands the power of staying sober. And when I say, all it takes was one drink, and this would have all been gone.
Mhm.
That's powerful. And there's so many things that happen along the way that just gave me these little nuggets of hope and to realize how precious not just sobriety is, but how precious life is. No matter what your struggles are or what you're going through, I believe my higher power always gives me a solution. One of the statements I've always hated, here I am getting opinionated, and I got this strong hate. I hate that
There it
word. I
is.
don't even like
There it
that
is.
word.
There it is.
But I hear it in meetings all the time.
Mm.
God will never give me more than I can handle. Oh my gosh, that statement makes my blood boil. It's like God gave me more than I could handle. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here today. Yep,
That's
exactly.
why I'm here
100%.
today. If I
100%.
hadn't have given up and surrendered,
Right.
I wouldn't be here.
Because you're going to surrender to something less that overwhelms you?
I totally got
No.
I totally got my butt kicked.
Yeah.
I was up to my eyeballs in Brent's crap,
Right.
and there was no way out.
Right.
And the last thing I wanted that to be was a spiritual solution, like, yeah, it's a God way out. No, I don't want that.
Right.
But I believe my higher power many times has given me more than what I could handle. And I needed to turn to him. And that's what I do.
I
So
agree.
maybe that's taking it out of perspective the way they mean to say it, but that's what I hear when people say that. It's just like, what?
Yeah. Well, I'm with you, man.
I
I mean, in my life, yeah, for sure. For sure, it was more than I could handle because that's when I turned to him. And then, you know,
yeah.
again, not the same degree, but yeah, that's how I was able to get through those things. I mean, when I'm sitting in the hospital with COVID, I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna die in 7 days, right? Like, there's, I'm handling more than what I can handle, and
Yeah. God's
so
yeah. There's more out there than anyway. I just you know, I want to it's our hour's up, but I think we started late, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to
yeah,
share this story with you that
please,
because one of my big deals here doing this is I have this intuition that people are out there that struggle and they get to a place where they've got more than they can handle and they want to just end it all. That they think the only way out is to end their life. And I've been there, and I've been in so much emotional pain that that seemed to be a pretty good option. Now that I lost my brother to suicide. I've lost lots of friends to suicide. Lots of friends. I've been to a lot of funerals. I think I shared one of them with you, where the little gal that I knew real well called me up and told me that she loved me, and then 10 minutes later, she was dead. And I've had lots of experiences like that. And I think when we talk about addiction and we talk about, helping people, I think the one thing that we got to continue to talk about is, your mental health and that there is hope that, making that decision to end it all is a tough decision. And I'm glad that I took a minute and thought about all the people that it would hurt, because I know when my brother died, how many people, and I don't think he knew. I don't think he thought about it. I don't think he would have done it if he would have known the depth of pain that the survivors feel. I don't think he would have done it. But if you're out there and you're thinking those thoughts, one time I was with a group of people. It was right after I got sober. We're a bunch of young people, and there was a dance out at one of the recovery clubs. And so we all got together. We hung out together a lot. We'd go to coffee. We'd go to these dances and everything. And yeah, you want to do something fun, dance when you're sober for the first time. Oh my gosh, it's funny. But anyway, we're going to go to this sober dance, and we go out to this place, and we're with a bunch of friends, and we had such a good time. We laughed so hard. I mean, when you first come in the program, you think you're never going to laugh again. Life is just going to be boring and glum from this point on. It's just, you're never, ever, ever going to enjoy life again. And that is so not true. I've never had so much fun and laughed harder in sobriety than I didn't even dream it was possible. But this one night in particular, we went out and had a really good time, and we were with some friends, and one of the kids that we were hanging out with, he was, I don't know, he's probably 20, good looking kid, kind of obnoxious as hell, but, just had a ton of energy, but I really liked him. He had a good heart. He's bouncing off the walls a little bit. I knew his sister really well, and we hung out that night. He had a good time. He laughed, and he had a great time. And, we dropped him off that night, and he went in the house, and he blew his head off. And for the life of me, I don't get it. For the life of me, I have thought about that kid so many times. And this is 35 years ago. And I think about him all the time. And I think, why didn't he just reach out? I would have stayed up with him all night long. Anybody in that car would have. We would have helped him. But when you make that decision and you take that step, there's no coming back. There's no undoing what's done. I can sit here and feel the pain for that kid, but man, he never reached out. He never asked for help. It's because we just have a hard time asking for help. So there's people out there, trust me, one of the most amazing things is when I got sober is I care. There's so many people out there I care about. I haven't even met them. There's people on the other end of this podcast. I haven't met you, but when I tell you this, I mean it. I care. I want to help. I don't want people to be in pain. I don't want that emotional pain for anybody. And we don't have to, you don't have to surrender to that. There's a way out. One more day, one more opportunity. You never know. My biggest rewards that I've had during my sobriety has come from a whole bunch of emotional pain. And on the other side of that emotional pain is some real big gifts. And, I remember people telling me that when I was going through it, and I thought, yeah, screw you, easy for you to say. You don't even know how I feel. They did know, but I'm so stubborn and bullheaded, I didn't want to listen to them. And now I'm saying the same thing they did. And I'm sure the people out there in podcast land are thinking the same thing I thought. You don't know what I'm going through. Well, we just might, we just open up your mind just a little bit. We just might know. Mm-hmm. And we've been there, and we can walk through this together, reach out to us or reach out to somebody like us, because there's so many of us out there that really honestly care. And all you got to do is tap into that. I would love the opportunity to sit with that kid and talk to him all night, keep him from doing that. And that's just one out of I don't know how many that I know of that did the same thing. And every time it happens, it takes a little piece out of me. It hurts. Care. I just care. I care because, that's why I'm doing this, because I care. It's easy to go through your life and not think about other people or other things. But I've often thought that how precious life really is, what a gift it is to be on this planet, to be able to have relationships with your loved ones, with your neighbor, whatever, to carve out a career, to go through all those things that we go through, to experience the love that we experience. Sometimes the anger, sometimes the unknown, It's not always comfortable, but man, I'll tell you what, I don't take life for granted. I love living. I love my life. I'm just so thrilled that I've got an opportunity just to wake up every morning and do pretty much what I want to do. And I'm spoiled. And the thing is, if that's available to me, it's available to you. I don't believe my higher power loves me more than he loves you. I'm not some special human being. What I am is I'm a human being that enjoys life. And I've got some tools along the way that has taught me how to live my life happy, joyous, and free. And no money can buy that, Sure helps though.
Yeah,
you might want to edit that part out.
Yeah. You gotta have it. No, that's part of it. That's part of it too. Well, that's awesome. That was a great one. I think we could probably wrap up there, and I'd love to hear some of those additional stories that you teased us about. So maybe we'll save those for next time. But
yeah. Well, I got lots of them. We got a lot of episodes.
Sounds good. Well, this has been great. Thanks again, and we'll see you all later on the next episode of Push Each Other to the Top. See you then.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to Push Each Other to the Top. Brent's story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's still a path forward and someone willing to walk it with us. If this episode meant something to you, share it. And if you're struggling right now, please know you're not alone. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next story. And if you can, leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. New episodes drop soon. We hope you'll come back. Continue listening for behind the scenes moment after we ended the episode.
That was cool. Man.
It's kind of fun how it just really takes on a life of its own. We start down a path. I don't even know where we're going. And next thing you know, we're talking about swimming up streams and water.
That's right.
It's just amazing, isn't it?
It is so wild. I don't know. It just tells me there is just absolute truth out there.
Yeah.
And we can all come different ways to those little nuggets of truth along the way.
Yeah.
And I love it. I just think it's so cool. That's amazing. That is truly just.
Well, yeah, I really feel like we accomplished kind of letting people know what we're trying to do here, and why we do what we're doing, and kind of give people some hope.
Absolutely.
And inspire people maybe to help others, push people to the top.